Welcome to the Tech Dialogue podcast, where we discuss life inside and outside of tech with great people. Speaking of great people, we have a special guest here today, Andrew Yeomans, who's going to share with us his story on how he's transitioning, should I say, from being a store manager to a new career within cybersecurity. Now, this story in particular is one that I feel like is um, that needs to be shared with the community and with the viewers, because Andrew, and he'll share his story, but Andrew started the transition to cybersecurity, or made the decision to switch careers at a fairly late stage in his life, and he's not that old, so I don't really want to say it that in that way, but usually when we settle down in careers, it's pretty early. So Andrew's made a transition, and I think it's important that he shares his story, because I want people to know that it's not too late to also make that decision if you're out there and you're looking at transitioning into tech or cybersecurity as well. So I'll start off by introducing Andrew. Andrew, thank you for joining this podcast today and offering to share your story. Do you just want to start by giving the viewers a quick introduction about who you are and kind of what you've been doing up until now?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Kelvin. So my name's Andrew. As you said, I've worked in retail for the last 20 years. I spent 10, 11 of those as a manager in a large retail company. I've grew up in South Africa, moved over to the UK in 1999. My career path wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Life definitely took me down a few unexpected paths. But yeah, after 20 years of being in retail, realizing it was never really where I wanted to be, wasn't going where I wanted it to be. At the age of 40, 41, I decided that now's the time to go to university, get a degree, and jump into tech and cybersecurity in particular.
Wow, nice. And as I say, I feel like, it's never too late to be able to, make that transition or jump into a new field. I just think if anything, it's inspiring to see that people are still kind of out there looking to make that transition. And I know 41's not, an old age, but, at the same time, as I said, people are looking at really starting careers at an earlier age and kind of establishing themselves in the industry. So I think, just tell me a little bit about, your first job, because I think, we initially, when you initially give me the lowdown of your background, you basically said that your first job from school, I believe, was as an help desk analyst in South Africa. And did you have any experience getting into that role? How did you kind of come about that, and what kind of led you there?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate with that job. And unfortunately, when you're 18, you don't realize that you're fortunate sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell into it. So obviously going through school in South Africa, in the mid 90s, obviously there's massive changes going on in the country, and my family, my father had a business which was struggling, and there were times that my parents were worried about putting food on the table, let alone paying for me to go to university. So university was never an option for me back when I was a kid. Um, didn't really know what I was going to do when I left school. I wanted to go into IT in some capacity, and I was very fortunate that one of my brother's friends was working as an IT manager, and he got me a temporary job, which answering phones pretty much for them, which then kind of turned into a permanent position as an IT help desk analyst, and kind of helped set up the help desk in the company. And I think at that point, at the age of being like 18, 19, I thought, well, that's obviously just how the world works, and you just kind of fall into these things. And my parents and brother had emigrated. My dad's English, so they kind of come back to the UK at about that time, and I stayed in South Africa on my own. I think I was kind of missing my family a bit, and decided to move over here in 1999, thinking, oh well, I'll just kind of go over and get another IT job. And at the time, towards the end of the 90s, obviously there was a massive IT boom with Y2K going on. I moved over here in August of '99, and I think by then it was pretty much done. So trying to get another IT job was, without any qualifications or certs or anything like that, I really, really struggled. I was applying for jobs and just as a first line IT analyst, as a support role, and they were expecting people to have minimum 2 years experience and an MCSE, which was probably the CCNA of the
Yeah.
90s, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. So a few bar jobs, waiting jobs, things like that for a while. Ended up working in London, and then fell into retail as things just kind of didn't materialize the way I wanted it to. So yeah, that was
Nice.
how that's how my missed opportunity at a young age, and how I've ended up kind of where I am now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you say you started off working in IT 18, and then as you said, you moved across to the UK, and then with the struggles, the challenges that you faced with needing more experience and certifications, kind of is it fair to say that it kind of stumped you a little bit, and you just thought this just isn't going to happen without either getting certifications, more experience, or going to maybe university? um is that kind of why you decided then to kind of move on from IT, if you like, at least for a little bit, and just find your way by getting a job doing something else to obviously make ends meet? Because I think by then did you have 3 kids? And I
Yeah,
know,
I had
yeah, I mean, I know when you have kids, it becomes a little bit less about yourself and more about, just being able to provide for the family, and you do what you've got to
yeah.
do to be able to do it. So did you kind of just think then at that point, well, IT doesn't seem to be working out. Let me see what else there is that I can do just to kind of make ends meet.
I think the problem that I had was just was getting those IT certifications were not cheap. It wasn't like there's not the plethora of online resources available that there are now. The YouTube wasn't the thing that was. I needed the money to be able to get those certifications, but at the same time, I needed money to kind of pay bills, put food on the table, things like that. So the cost of getting certified was just beyond my means. I think I hadn't really. I'll be honest with you, I never really considered university because my experience of my understanding what university was coming from South Africa, where there's no such thing as a student loan company. There's no you've got to pay for your tuition fees up front. I never really considered it. Um, I so yeah, financially, it then just became about picking up job um, to earn money, and then to pay your bills. Wasn't the money to get certified. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I started off. I was a stay at home when my son was born. I was a stay at home dad, and I ended up working supermarket just like part time as just for a bit of extra money, and then I kind of progressed from there, became a manager, and had a few group roles. So I just fell into that, and it was just paying the bills, and there just wasn't that money for certification. And it wasn't until the kids were a bit older um, that I thought, I need to do something, and I looked into university a bit more. And fortunately, with the student loan company getting my tuition fees paid for, and also the maintenance loan that they provide, um, it was all about their maintenance loan. That was what enabled me to be able to go to university, because I need to work step down. I just, for the last 3 years, I've just been a supermarket delivery driver, working about 20 hours a week, which topping up my maintenance loan has enabled me to be able to do this. But definitely early on in my life, it wasn't something that was possible or something that I considered or even knew about. So yeah, it took me a while, but I think it is all about being able to be financially secure, to be able to go and study, to be able to gain that long term financial security. So yeah, it's you find yourself in an instant juxtaposition of, what do I sacrifice? Do I sacrifice for my family to kind of go to do my education, or do I sacrifice my education and just work to be able to provide for the family? And I think ultimately there's only ever going to be one answer to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I can really sympathize with that because I myself was in the same position at one point where I think it's easy when well it's easier when you're fresh out of school, you're still maybe living at home with parents, and you've kind of got that financial support. You don't have to worry about paying bills and stuff like that. You can go off to university and do what you've got to do. But as you said, you had people that were financially dependent on you, and you had to provide. And I was the same when I first started my undergraduate. It was a choice between providing for the family, as you say, and working was the way to do that, or being able to find some other financial means while I went to university in order to be able to fulfill what I wanted to do, but also provide for the family as well. And I think at the time, and I'm not too sure if they still do it now, I may be wrong, but at the time for me, the thing that got me by was, you've got your student loans, which pay for the course, which is all well and good. But then at the time for me, the maintenance loans, as with you, were the things that kind of got me by and allowed me to essentially work part-time, just doing a variety of different jobs just to get me through 3 years of university so that I could actually make that transition or that change into tech. So I think that's one thing I think for us adults, I think, is that there's a lot to think about when you're making these transitions. And when you want to maybe go to university or pay for these certifications, you really need to look at where that money is going to come from in order to do that. So I think I take my hat off to you, because I know myself when I did the same thing and applying for these maintenance loans and grants and stuff like that, it's not as straightforward as one would think it is. There's a lot to kind of go about, and fill out papers to fill out and sign and stuff like that before you can even get that. And then at the same time, you still need to make sure you're working and getting that income to provide for the family, while still also being able to carry out the university course in order to get that degree as well. So you take on a lot, and I really do take my hat off to you, because I know myself it's is difficult to do. So fast forward to being a store manager. How long did you work as a store manager, and what benefit do you think, if anything, did you get from being a store manager? Do you think that there's any transferable skills that you've kind of picked up on that you could really take into the tech industry, aside from obviously the life experience that I think comes part and parcel with age? Do you think there's anything there that you can really help bring across to be able to land the role or a role in cybersecurity?
I think there's always transferable skills. For me, resilience is probably one of the biggest things I would have picked up through my time in retail management. I managed teams from as small as 12 people taking in £100,000 a week to a team of 150 people taking in £350,000 a week. There's always challenges in there. You've got to be able to manage your time, manage other people's time, look after other people. And I think that all, well, when I go into when I make the career transition into tech, I'm not going to have to worry about managing people. It's definitely taught me resilience in how you deal with setbacks, how you deal with adversity, how to manage your emotions during difficult times. That's probably what I'll take from
Yeah.
from my role the most is 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 how I perform in situations which are stressful and where I have people relying on me.
Yeah, and I think being in cybersecurity already, I think that's definitely a good transferable skill to have. Again, depending on the job that you have, but sometimes you are under stressful situations, and I think being able to cope with those situations really kind of makes you stand out as a person as well. And just one thing that I've just thought of, actually, when you made that decision, or speak to me about how you actually made that decision to kind of drop down from being a store manager, which is obviously going to take a financial hit on the salary, to work part-time and make that decision to go to university. I mean, was that a conversation that you had with your partner, or did you just wake up one day and think, I don't want to do this no more, I want to kind of take a shot again in cybersecurity, and in order to do that, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, it was so obviously I couldn't have done without the support of my wife, and she's been very supportive in the whole thing. There's she works in retail as well. She's and she's ready to make a change. So I think for us is that there's a shared goal at the end of this, because when I finish my degree and I start working, I'll be able to take the financial burden off of her from being the primary earner in the family, and she'll then be able to take that step away and go and do something that she wants to do. So fortunately, it benefits both of us. So it wasn't a purely selfish decision, but there's no way I could have done it without kind of talking to her first, and we had to crunch numbers and make sure that we were going to be okay financially. But she's been on board, and there's no way I could have done it without her support. So the decision to do it was, I've been thinking about it for a while. And the one thing that's really struck me with at university is that a barrier for me a few times, and when I thought about it before, was 3 years is such a long time. Can I afford to? I need to try and make a change sooner. 3 years is just too long to make that change. And then I found that 2 years later, I was thinking to myself, I still haven't made the change, and actually, I would have been 2 years into my degree. I would nearly be finished by now. So, I just had to make the change, because it seems like a long time, but it's amazing how quickly it goes. And the sooner you do it, the sooner it gets done. My decision to what helped. There were two major factors in me making the decision. One, so right at the start of the COVID outbreak, I got COVID quite badly and ended up in A&E, and it's quite a lot. It took me quite a while to recover. And whenever you have moments like that, you reflect a little bit on life and where you're going. And that was for me the moment I decided I had to do something to make the change. And then it was during the summer of 2020 when we were first allowed to start having people come around the houses again. And one of my friends came around here. He was diagnosed with cancer just before COVID hit, and we were kind of just talking about things. And again, it was another moment that was like, now's the time to do it, because anything can happen, and there's no point going into work every day just to make money to pay bills. You need to, I wanted to do something that I really wanted to do, that I enjoyed going in for, rather than have life just pass me by. So, and it was really weird, because the day after he was around and I was having these thoughts, I was watching something on YouTube, and an advert came up for University of Suffolk clearing, and they said, apply for clearing. And I thought, I'm going to have a look and see what they've got. And I went online, had a look at their clearing, saw a cybersecurity degree in their clearing, made some inquiries, and it was less than 4 weeks from me seeing that advert to me handing my notice to step down at work. So it all happened so quickly. It was an absolute whirlwind.
Wow.
And I think that kind of helped, because I didn't have time to have second thoughts. It was just, okay, it's happening, it's going, it's just got to be done. So and 2-3 weeks later, I was starting university. So I think the whole thing was about 7 weeks from me deciding, looking into it, to being accepted and stepping down. So yeah,
that's amazing. And I think the fact that you kind of things that have happened in life and have kind of made you reflect and just think, just go for it, and I really admire that, because I can resonate with some of the things that you're saying, because I was in a similar position where I'd done so many different jobs, and I got to a point where I just felt like things just wasn't working out. I wasn't enjoying the jobs that I was in. I wasn't enjoying actually getting up and going to work just felt like a burden. And when you feel like that, it just don't make the situation enjoyable. Every day just drags out, and every time you have work, or you've got work coming up, it's one of those where you just just don't want to. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. And I think for me, I kind of had those moments as well where I sat back and thought about things really hard. And again, university kept coming up for me. And the thing that kept putting me off was, the fact that I had to financially support the family. And I didn't know that there was any other way around, as we've already spoke about, at the time, to do that. And I just got to a point where I said, something's got to give. I need to find a way to make it work. And I did a similar thing. I kind of looked. I went online. I looked at my local university. I looked at the degree. Yeah, the degree that I did was like a computer networks and system support degree. So not necessarily cybersecurity. But nevertheless, it sounded interesting. And from there, I did the same thing. I applied, and, within a matter of weeks, I think the same week, actually, I went down and spoke with the lecturers. And then within a matter of weeks, I were pretty much all squared away, ready to start the course. And I think it's funny, you said, about the 3 years being a long time and stuff like that. It's funny you mentioned that, because when I first started my undergraduate, it was a case of, again, because I was more focused on supporting the family, it was a case of doing the course part-time, which was going to be over a 6-year period. And then when I actually started the course and realized I was the only one that was doing it over a 6-year period, again, I took a step back and I said, well, why is that? Because, there's other people here that are also financially supporting the families. And when I kind of looked at it and realized that each lecture wasn't kind of all day or every day, I realized, this could actually be done full time, because you're not really there in a full time capacity, and, I kind of said to my lecturer at the time, the very first day actually I started, I said, I'd like to switch to full time, because 3 years is long enough, but especially when you've kind of got to support a family. But when you're doing 6 years, I didn't see an end in sight, but I knew that I wanted to change my life. So I really understand where you're coming from with the 3 years, but I think it comes and it goes, and I think you learn so much and you get through so much before you know it, you're actually in the final year doing your final year project. Because 3 years is not really, I don't know if you feel the same way, but 3 years is not really 3 years with all the holidays and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you're at the end of it, aren't you? So I
Yeah,
think,
well, I can't believe I'm heading into my final semester now, and yeah, it's unbelievable how quickly it's gone.
yeah. So tell me about your university experience. Actually, how have you found it? Because you've left primary school, secondary school rather, in South Africa, and then gone to work, and then pretty much just worked the whole time. And not really being in a university setting where you've got to do referencing and stuff like that. So tell me about your experience as a mature adult going back into education at I assume you're around 38 or so when you went back in.
Yeah, no, I was 40. I was
Oh,
40. I think I just turned 41 when I started. So
wow. So tell
yeah,
tell
so
tell me about that then. How was that? Did you feel pressured seeing like the younger young adults there? What was your sort of feelings around doing this?
I think I was there was a little bit of trepidation initially. Just how am I going? It's been, I left school in 1997, and then 2020, in the 2020, I found myself back in school. I was like, oh, how am I going to how am I going to do this? But it was it was so different. It was so different to school, that it. And I think my excitement and desire just kind of go in and learn was quickly kind of knocked that out the way. It I think the bits that I found most challenging were the modules that were more maths intensive. Um, because it had been so long since I'd done any form of maths. And yeah, the one module we did on data science and algorithms, but that was I thought I was okay with maths, but
Yeah, you realized. Yeah.
well, that stuff was to maths as Mandarin is to English, the way I saw
Yeah,
it. It
yeah.
was just it was a totally different language. So trying to learn some of that stuff was a bit difficult. I think I was probably on the back foot a little bit compared to some of the guys who had just come out of school a couple of years earlier and had done maths. So they might, but you kind of pick it up quickly and you realize that everyone's in. Even those guys who have just come out of school are in exactly the same boat as you, and it doesn't really make a difference. I think it takes a little bit of adjusting, but once you get into it, you just fall back into it and you just get back into stride. And it's so different from the school setting that yeah, I think it felt natural and it didn't take me too long to adjust.
Excellent. So do you have any plans to maybe look at master's degree moving forward, or is the plan to finish? I know you said you're going to then look for a job and then hopefully take that burden off your wife, but is there any plans in the future to maybe look at maybe a master's degree or something like that, or is the plan just to focus on work?
I would like to do a master's, but I came into university knowing that having a degree in cybersecurity it doesn't mean I was all of a sudden I know everything. My plan is to try and get onto a graduate program, and that's what the degree is for. Because I know that a degree alone does not mean that you are employable, because you touch on a lot of things, but you don't really master anything specific. So I would like to. My plan's always been to kind of finish and gain some other certifications alongside my degree. So in the summer I'd like to do my CCNA exam, and maybe something like a Security Plus or something like that.
Yeah.
The problem is I definitely feel like I've got imposter syndrome as I come towards the end of my degree.
This was one of my questions actually, because I know you said that you felt like you have imposter syndrome, despite having been through pretty much 3 years of your degree and learning what you need to learn to hopefully get a job or land a job in cybersecurity. Just I've had imposter syndrome as well, and I know it's different for many people and how they feel. Just explain kind of why you feel like you've got imposter syndrome despite doing your degree, and having at least a little bit of experience and life experience as well. Why do you feel like you've kind of got that imposter syndrome?
I think because in my head, the fact that when I finish I'll have a cybersecurity degree, I think I should be able to go and do a cybersecurity job. But tech's a scary place when you're on the outside looking in. Whenever I kind of like research things, there's so much out there, and it's so scary to try and think when you look at what requirements jobs have, and when you're reading articles, and when I'm doing research for my assignments and things like that, so much of it still just goes completely over my head. Do I feel like I could hold my own, and do I feel workplace ready coming up? No, probably not. So I think the imposter syndrome comes from the fact that I feel like having a degree, I should be workplace ready, but I'm not, because the purpose of, especially our degree, cybersecurity is such a. I think some people think, oh, if you have a cybersecurity degree, you're going to go be a cybersecurity, but it's such a broad, such a wide umbrella. It covers so many bases, that there's no way I could possibly know everything that I need to know to go and have a straight out of university. We've covered a lot of bases in our degree. I have a far better understanding of the elements of cybersecurity. But yeah, I don't feel ready to kind of just go and start applying for jobs on the back of having my cybersecurity degree,
Yeah.
which is probably why I feel that a little bit. Which is why I'd really love to try and get like onto a graduate program where I can go um and and learn firsthand, get a bit of working experience as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I mean, I did a similar thing, and I think it really helps ease you into the industry that you're going into and explore a little bit, not necessarily, in totally safe hands, but, at least without the expectation that, you're going to do everything right the first time. So I think, yeah, if you could kind of get onto one of those, and there is many in the UK as well that kind of come up, especially, I know Cisco do a few, and I know a few other tech companies do them as well. So, those will really kind of help with that imposter syndrome. But I think, one thing that I would say is that imposter syndrome, at least for me, is it. I feel like it's a confidence thing because I have had imposter syndrome. I've got to a point where I feel like I am confident in what I'm doing and I know the job inside out, and then something will come up one day that kind of takes me back, and I think, oh, I've got imposter syndrome again. Am I capable of doing this job? Um, is it really for me? And I've had times where, especially really stressful customer situations where we've been troubleshooting something in their environment, a live environment, as well. You're kind of taken out of that university setting where you can break and fix things, and you're on a live environment, and that's where it gets real. And I've had situations where things have just not been working, and you're kind of meant to be the guy that is there to fix it and make everything work. And because you maybe can't do it straight away, or at least within a certain time frame, I've had situations where I feel like, am I really good enough for this? Can I do this? Do I need to be doing something else? But I think it's just, I think everybody gets it, and I've had people that I've come across really confident in the workplace, and I've kind of looked at them and thought, wow, you know what you're doing. And then we've had a conversation and they've said, well, yeah, I get imposter syndrome quite a lot. And I'm like, wow, like I wouldn't have expected that from you. So I think everybody gets it. People just don't really talk about it. And I think people need to talk about it a little bit more to show people, especially those coming into the industry or maybe new to the industry, that it's okay to have or experience imposter syndrome. Because I think with every new role or every new job, or when you're doing something new, I think you get to a point where you do experience that, regardless of what certifications you've got, or what degree you've got, or what sort of work experience you got. And I think it's okay. I think it shows that you really want to try and get things right, if anything, and in some respect even makes you work harder in order to make sure you get it right. And I mean, my experience where I said, I had that difficult customer and things just wasn't going right, I actually walked away from that call after getting things working and said to my missus, that were really hard. Am I cut out for this? And I think, those moments are few and far between, so I'm not saying you're not going to get those moments, because you probably will, but the few and far between. And it really doesn't sum up the industry and how your daily work's going to be. And I think, with the life experience you've got and the work experience you've got from other jobs, which come with the transferable skills, I think that will really help you, in this industry, to understand that and to keep you cool when things aren't necessarily going the right way. So yeah, what I would say is just know that everybody, or a lot of people, even though they might not say it, or they might come across as confident as could be, that at some point have experienced imposter syndrome, and they've maybe just not spoke about it. So just on, you said with the degree, you feel like you still can't kind of go into the workplace and start straight away. So would you still say that you feel like the degree has been a a worthwhile effort from yourself? Have you kind of got use out of that degree and feel like at least you've picked up some skills that you can kind of take from that degree and build on those moving forward?
Oh yeah, I think absolutely 100%. It's, as I say, in terms of if I had just gone and done a CCNA instead of going to university, I would know CCNA, but I might still be quite tunnel vision to everything else. This degree it's touched so many bases, and it's given such a broad overview of all the things related to. And there've been modules that we've done in our that I've just, at the time, I've thought to myself, why am I doing this module? I don't want to be a software developer. Why am I doing a module on software development?
Yeah.
But actually, it touches on cybersecurity, because the security involved and understanding the process that goes into developing software is just one avenue of cybersecurity, and it's such a huge umbrella. So it's definitely given me a far broader view of the field. I've touched a lot more bases. I definitely have a much more solid grounding in IT and in cyber security than if I had just gone and worked towards an ethical hacking cert or something like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely helped, and it's opened my eyes to other possible avenues to go down. So this last semester we've done a module on information engineering and data science, and I would never ever have contemplated that, but now it's quite interesting. And actually, it's my dissertation. I'm working on detecting network intrusions using machine learning. And actually, if I hadn't done this information engineering assignment, even though I don't want to be a data analyst or data scientist, I probably would never really have understood machine learning and how a machine learning model could be applied to intrusion detection systems. So it's definitely it's been fantastic. And first year we did like really basic modules just on operating systems and computer platforms, and I went in thinking, well, I've got a fairly good understanding of how computers work. I knew nothing about computers. It's we did a little bit on assembly language, and it's things I just wouldn't even have thought of before. So yeah, it's really good to kind of give a far broader view of computers and the industry that I might not have had if I had just gone and studied for certain certifications.
Definitely. And I think you raised a good point there with regards to the ability, or the modules covering different technologies and different things that you probably wouldn't have even worked on or even considered if you was kind of out of that university setting and looking to kind of take this on yourself. And one thing that stood out for me, and I always say when people say to me today, we always have this conversation online now about whether degrees are not really worth it now, and you could just get certifications and get a job and all the rest of it. And while that might be possible to some extent, I still stand by the fact that, especially in my experience, that degrees, or at least my undergraduate degree, was the foundation for me to be able to kind of evaluate really what I wanted to do, or what I thought I wanted to do, and learn these things in a safe environment without damaging or having somebody come shouting at me if things didn't work or didn't work the first time. And I think that really helps, because if you go down just the certification route and you're not in university or in that setting, yes, you can set up labs and stuff like that at home and your own environment and stuff, but you're kind of limited to your own knowledge of kind of what you're doing, really. Whereas I think the university setting with the modules, as you said, it opens up your eyes to things that you wouldn't even have considered before. And, you think, well, oh, let me take a second to maybe explore this a little bit more because I didn't know about this. Or, you're forced to kind of complete a module that you feel like you've got no interest in. But then by the time you get to the end of the module, you find out you've really enjoyed it. And, I think that's just one thing that you get from university that you can't get from just doing it yourself, because as I say, you're limited to your own experience of kind of what you're doing. And I think for me as well, with the different modules, I think it's fair to say, although it's fair to say that yes, you're not going to use every single thing that you've learned in university, because as you said, it's so dispersed, and what they're trying to do is give you different areas that could potentially be of interest to you moving forward, but equip you with enough skills to say, well, yes, I want to focus on this area once I leave university, and go down that route. And one thing that really helped me was, and I'm sure you've kind of done some aspect to this as well, is looking at sort of the project management side of things and how to manage your projects at university and get them submitted on time, and things like that. Because I think in the IT industry, as a store manager, I mean, you probably wasn't working on projects and having to kind of submit, against the deadline per se. Whereas in the tech industry, especially cybersecurity, and especially depending on what you're doing, you're always going to be kind of working to some sort of deadline or trying to meet some sort of deadline. And I feel like the project management skills that I covered in my undergraduate degree, although I thought that wasn't relevant, little things like that just kept coming back at me when I kind of first entered the industry, and I'm like, oh yeah, we did that at university. And that's the real value I feel like you get from university, unless you've kind of got somebody outside that kind of understands and mentors or coaches you, and has that experience. I just don't really feel like you're going to get that sort of experience, outside of a degree sort of thing. So I really think, that's one of the great things about degrees, and I really think that you've kind of done the best you can to kind of understand the industry a little bit more, as opposed to just going through certifications. I mean, did that ever go through your mind? Did you ever think, oh, maybe I should just do a couple of certifications and not university? Or was the degree sort of the end goal for you?
Yeah, I definitely. It said those times that I was thinking, oh, a degree is just too long. I thought, oh, I'll go and do a certification. I think the barrier to me was always financial, because even just an exam, is so expensive. Um, I had thought about that, but I think university is what really appealed to me, and just kind of going and being able to dedicate, being at university full time and able to dedicate the time to studying, rather than trying to fit it around work, where I might not be able to give it the attention that it needed if I'm working 40 plus hours a week, and then coming home and trying to find time to fit to kind of cram their studying in as well. It might have been a bit. I was worried about it being a little bit haphazard and a bit, not really giving it the attention that it needed. So I think university is definitely what appealed to me, and it's been brilliant.
Excellent. So you're coming up to, your dissertation phase now. So you're coming up to the end of university and graduating. What's your plans for when you have finished? You've got no more coursework to submit. You've got no more deadlines. What are you kind of looking for, a specific job, or are you still? I know you said you're looking at graduate programs, but from experience, I know that those only come at certain periods, and you're not always guaranteed to get onto those. So, I mean, are you kind of looking further afield, and already looking at specific areas that you'd maybe want to at least try get into?
I think the one thing, so networking's always interested me, and I kind of came into university with an open mind on what I was going to take on, and and view each opportunity differently. I think at the end of it, networking is still something I'm quite interested in. So I want to get with CCNA, and try and get. Ideally, I'd like to try and get into that field. I think, yeah, the appeal of plugging wires into boxes doesn't seem to go away.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, just on the subject of, the CCNA, I think if you was, I think it's a great, I'm not being biased because I work for Cisco, but I think, I think it's, I genuinely do think, I always have conversations with people that are trying to get into cybersecurity and they have very limited to no knowledge about cybersecurity, or anything really regards to tech, and they ask me, where should I start? What certification should I be looking at? And I always say the CCNA certification is the certification that you should be looking at. And the reason I say that is because, as you say, it gives you a good foundational knowledge of networking, and not just networking from a sort of, as you said there yourself, but plugging in things to devices, but it also covers other areas such as security, wireless, some programmability, I believe, as well. So it gives you that really well-rounded view of sort of in one certification of some of the possibilities that you could have in the industry. And it kind of goes without saying as well, the CCNA is kind of well known as being a good certification to have. So I think definitely that's a good place to start. And as I say, it gives you those security fundamentals as well. It might not cover it in depth, but at least you can kind of come away knowing a little bit more than maybe what you did. Maybe not in your case because you've kind of been through university and done cybersecurity, but I think I always say that you can't, even though you want to get into cybersecurity, you first need to understand the networking fundamentals. You need to understand what an IP address is. You need to understand, subnets. You need to understand, maybe ACLs. You need to understand all that good stuff before you start looking at the deeper stuff within cybersecurity. Because how are you going to, in cybersecurity, regardless of what you're doing, how are you going to differentiate between a certain subnet of an IP address if you don't understand what IP addressing is, if you don't understand IPv4 versus IPv6, and so on and so forth? So I always direct people to the CCNA because I think it's a good baseline. And when actually, before I don't know if they still do this as well, but before I left my undergraduate, before I left university, I got the CCENT, which is the first part of the CCNA. And then what I did then was I booked the second part of that and actually landed my first job just as I finished university as a security engineer. And shortly after that, then I obtained, I passed the second part and then got my CCNA. So I think you're definitely on the right track looking at doing that. I also think that, if you can land a job just solely off of your, life experience and degree, I think a lot of companies these days will pay for certifications. So that could be one way of doing it as well. You could actually go down that route and then start looking at certifications, whether that be CCNA or other security certifications down the line, and you not have to pay for them as well. So that could be one way as well. And that's just one thing to keep in mind because a lot of companies do that these days. So I think, do you have any sort of direction that you want to go in regards to specific roles? Or are you still kind of open to seeing what really fits? Because obviously once you finish university, it's time to choose. So yes, you're maybe going to get that opportunity with graduate roles, but if you had to kind of apply for positions today in cybersecurity, do you kind of have an idea of what sort of roles you'd be looking at?
Yeah, I think Kelvin, I'm quite realistic about the fact that I am going to be considerably older than most graduates when I finish, and I think my aim is to kind of cast a fairly wide net for roles and see where I can go into, rather than thinking, right, spend the next 5-10 years developing. There's one path I want to go down. I can spend the next 5-10 years kind of developing my skills on there. So I think a networking role is what really interests me at the moment. So yeah, I like to try and explore avenues down that way, but at the same time, I think I feel realistic about the fact that I might need to cast my net a little bit wider and see what else comes along. But yeah, if I don't get on a graduate scheme, I'm also very realistic about the fact that I may have to just apply for those first line support roles, second line support roles, and try and go from there. But yeah, I would like to kind of pursue a career in networking in one form or another. Fortunately, where I live, we've got BT just down the road, so they do a couple of graduate programs and other schemes. So it'd be nice to try and kind of get in somewhere like that, learning networking and cybersecurity a bit more. I think for me that's my primary focus at the moment, is trying to go down that path.
Definitely.
Doing exactly what, I'm not quite sure yet.
Yeah.
Because as everything in the tech game, there's so many options, and it still it's a little bit baffling sometimes when you look at the different paths. So
yeah, and I think it's fair to say that I think you find your experience, you find your place when you actually get into the industry and find out a little bit more about kind of what's going on, the sort of different titles that exist and sort of avenues that exist as well. And I know that was the same for me. I mean, I landed, as I say, a role as a security engineer, which is what I wanted. And to be quite honest, the only role that I kind of knew from a real cybersecurity standpoint. I knew others existed, but I wanted to kind of add the networking fundamentals that I had from the CCNA and then get into security, and I thought adding the two together, security engineer, that's like the perfect thing for me to do. And I think
I'd love to end up working I'd love to work in a SOC. It seems something like that just seems ideal. But yeah, it's kind of finding the path to kind of get there and seeing what comes along.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you will find your path, and as time goes on, you'll start to develop your path or build up your own path and decide where it is that you want to go within the industry. So I mean, what advice would you give someone that's looking at transitioning into tech, that's around the same age, or 40 plus, and maybe think that it's too old for them to be able to be looking at transitioning?
Yeah, don't be scared. Would probably be my first thing. It's daunting when you look at it. We're very, very fortunate in this country that there are so many support mechanisms available to us. So if you're in a similar situation, first and foremost, you need to make sure that that it's financially viable for you. Make sure that there's that financial support for you and that you're going to be able to do it. Because I think if I had the added stress of I'm not making ends meet, and it's been tough a lot financially. It's been tough. I've had no spare money really,
I can imagine in this day and age as well.
and Christmas is, oh my god, all of a sudden you trying to pay for Christmas as well as everything else, and so I think just try and make sure that A, financially able to do it, B, you have the support of the people around you, because that's absolutely vital as well. And then just go for it. Again, I was quite fortunate that I live in Ipswich when I first started, and we have university there, so I was able to go to university close to home, so I could it was close to home, so I could step down, I could travel in every day, still live at home and work. So look into all those things, make sure it's doable, and then just go for it, because it's the other thing I also say is make sure that you anyone thinking about doing it, have a bit of an idea of uh, have a bit of an idea of what you're doing. Don't just think, I've seen people come on who um, don't really have much understanding or experience of computers. I think their thought is just, oh, cybersecurity is a growing field. If I go and get a degree in cybersecurity, I'll be earning 50, 60K a year when I walk out. Be realistic about what it is you want to do, what you want to get at the end of it, and be realistic about your understanding of where you are before you do it, because I think I think it can end up being quite a negative experience for you if you're just thinking, I'm going to go in and do it purely for a 60K a year job at the end of it. Make sure you're realistic about what you want to do. Probably be support advice as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think, that is one thing that we're seeing, especially today. I go on social media platforms such as, TikTok and others, and you're seeing advertisements saying, get into cybersecurity, and they make it out like it's just this easy thing that anyone can do. And it makes me laugh because, as you said, it's important to make sure that you're not just doing it for, and granted, some people do it just for the money, but they also have the mindset in order to be able to, that technical mindset in order to be able to do what they're doing. But there's others out there that maybe can't grasp certain things, concepts, and they're looking at getting into cybersecurity or any other tech field, and it just doesn't end up working out for them. And I think it's important, like you say, to actually evaluate and make sure that it is something that at least you think you would enjoy before actually embarking on that journey. Because, as you say, when you, especially going down the university route, you're paying. Yes, you might be getting student loans in the UK, but at the end of the day, you're also paying for that course, regardless of whether you get a job at the end of it or not. So
yeah, well, I'm gonna be just sort of £60,000 in debt when I finish. So
exactly.
it is a massive. It doesn't. It feels. There's an element that feels like, oh, it's free money because it's student loans paying for that and giving me his money, but you got to pay it back sooner or later. It's still you. It's still your financial burden at the end of the day. So make sure it's something you definitely want to do, so you're not just wasting that money.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not just a commitment to actually study; it's commitment to financially pay that back as well. At some point, obviously, depending on where you are in the world as well. But I think we're pretty much at time now. Andrew, it's been a pleasure talking to you today and understanding your story and in your journey as well, and hopefully just shedding light to those out there that may be also in a similar position or looking at getting into cybersecurity or tech as well. At a fairly mature age as well, or maybe even people that are just looking in, getting into tech as well. So I appreciate you, offering your time to come on here and share your story with us as well. And I want to wish you the best of luck for finishing your dissertation and going on to entering the cybersecurity world. I'm sure you will enjoy it. And if there's any recruiters watching aside from myself on here, Andrew is open for work, so reach out to him. I'll share his Twitter as well. You can reach out to him on there as well if you got any further questions. But yeah, Andrew's open for work. But yeah, thank you, Andrew, for your.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Kelvin.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Take it easy.